Have you ever been there? Have you ever felt the slow, silent drift of someone away from you? Someone who used to be the center of your world, the one you wanted to share every moment with, whose presence brought you peace. It was like an invisible wall was being built between you. Your voice wasn't reaching them, and they weren't noticing the light in your eyes, were they? Maybe everything looked the same from the outside. You were still living in the same house, sleeping in the same bed, maybe even eating at the same table. But the real story was hidden in that unfamiliar emptiness echoing in the depths of your heart, beyond words and routines. Well, this video delves into that very silent parting, those initial, almost imperceptible signs. No drama, no accusations, and certainly no guessing games. Just a clear understanding. Because when love starts to fade, it often leaves a soft, subtle trail of behavioral changes, emotional distance, and withheld connection, and that trail whispers a real story even when lips don't speak. In this video, we're going to walk through 5 subtle yet profoundly telling signs that often appear first when someone no longer loves you. These aren't random guesses. They're based on real emotional patterns observed in long-term relationships, marriages, and close partnerships. By the end of this video, you'll have a clearer sense of what's real, what matters, and what your next step might be. Stick around until the end, because one of these signs, one that often goes unnoticed, could shift how you view your relationship entirely. You deserve honesty, not just from others, but also from yourself. So, let's take a closer look at how love, when it starts to leave, almost always knocks in the same quiet ways first. Sign 1, loss of curiosity. One of the first and quietest signs that someone no longer loves you is that they stop being curious about your world. Not long ago, they might have asked how your doctor's appointment went, what your grandkids are up to, or how you've been sleeping lately. But now, they barely lift their eyes when you speak. They don't ask follow-up questions. They don't seem interested in the little stories that make up your day. That change isn't just about distraction or being busy. It's about emotional disconnection. Let me tell you about Edna and Paul, married for nearly 40 years. Edna used to tell Paul everything. How the roses were finally blooming again, what the neighbor's dog had done, how her book club was getting heated over a mystery novel. Paul used to listen. He'd laugh, nod, throw in a comment here or there. But somewhere along the line, that stopped. Edna would start a story, and he'd barely look up from the television. He'd answer with a grunt or not at all. Edna felt it before she could name it. This heavy quiet between them. It wasn't just a lack of words. It was the absence of interest. When someone loves you, they lean into your world. They want to understand you, even in the smallest things. They remember your appointments. They care about what upsets you. When that caring fades, they start to emotionally check out, and it doesn't usually come with anger. It comes with silence, a kind of emotional vacancy that leaves you feeling lonely even in a shared room. And here's the truth. People don't stop asking because you're boring or because your stories have changed. They stop because they no longer feel emotionally invested. You become background noise instead of the main character in their day. That sounds harsh, but if you're starting to feel like your voice doesn't land anymore, it might be time to ask yourself, when did they stop being curious about me? And why didn't I notice it sooner? Because when someone no longer loves you, they don't always say it, but they show in what they no longer ask and what they no longer seem to care to hear. Sign 2, decreased patience. When someone's love begins to fade, their patience is often the first thing to go. The same things they used to smile at, laugh off, or gently correct suddenly seem to irritate them. You might be telling a story you've told before or asking a simple question about the calendar or the groceries, and you're met with a sigh, a sharp tone, or that cold look that says, "Why are you bothering me?" What used to feel like understanding now feels like walking on eggshells. Take a moment and think about someone like Helen, 76 years old, who had always been a little forgetful. Her husband, Richard, used to tease her kindly about it. He'd help her find her glasses or remind her for the 5th time where she left her phone. It was part of their rhythm. But then it shifted suddenly. Richard was snapping at her. He'd mutter under his breath or roll his eyes. One day, when she asked for help logging into her online banking, he just said, "You need to figure out yourself." Helen didn't forget that moment, not because it was dramatic, but because it was so different from how he used to be. When someone is in love, They offer grace. They know your quirks, your habits, your weak spots, and they navigate them gently. But when love fades, even the smallest requests feel like demands to them. The shift is subtle but powerful. Where there used to be understanding, there's now resistance. And it's not about what you did wrong. It's about how they started pulling away emotionally. And patience is often the first thread that snaps. You might start second-guessing yourself. Am I being too needy? Am I asking too much? But the truth is, it's not about needing less. It's about how they're willing to show up for you has changed. They're no longer investing emotionally, and that shows up in the tone of their voice, the way they interrupt, the eye rolls you catch, even the heavy silence that follows a perfectly normal question. Don't ignore that shift. It's not just moodiness or stress. It could be a sign that their heart is no longer where it once was. And if you're constantly feeling like you're a bother instead of a partner, that's something you deserve to acknowledge. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment 2 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Now let's move forward. Sign 3, lack of time together. When love begins to disappear, time starts to disappear with it. Not time in the sense of hours or days on a calendar, but the kind of time that feels shared, meaningful, and chosen. You'll notice that they stop making plans with you, not because they're busy, but because they don't want to. They used to sit beside you during your favorite shows or join you on the porch in the evening. Now, they linger in other rooms. They leave the house more often without asking if you'd like to come. And when they do stay, their body is there, but their attention isn't. Think about someone like Ree, 68, who loved his morning routine with his wife Linda for years. They'd sip coffee side by side at the kitchen table, talk about the weather, the news, or just sit in silence. It didn't matter what they said. It was about being there. But slowly that changed. Linda started waking up earlier and heading out for long walks alone. The coffee was already made, the table empty. She said she needed time for herself. Ree understood until it kept happening day after day. He started to feel like a guest in his own marriage. When someone loves you, they carve out time because time is a form of love. But when that love weakens, so does their desire to be close. And often they won't explain it. They'll say they're tired. They'll say they have errands. They'll say nothing at all. But the truth is, people make time for what matters to them. And if you keep finding yourself alone, even when they're in the same house, it might not be by accident. They stop inviting you to do small things. They don't ask what your day looks like. They start saying, you go ahead, or I'll just stay here. And with each quiet decision, the distance grows. It doesn't take a big fight or a dramatic announcement. All it takes is enough mornings apart. Enough dinners where you eat alone. Enough nights when they fall asleep with their back turned. If you're feeling left behind in a relationship that once felt shared, don't ignore that feeling. Because when someone no longer loves you, the time they give you isn't reduced. It's removed. And that kind of silence speaks louder than words ever could. Sign 4, emotional withholding. There comes a point, often quietly, when someone stops letting you in, not just into their day, but into their inner world. You used to hear their worries, their hopes, their thoughts about life or work or family. But now, it feels like they're wearing a mask. They answer with surface-level comments. They say things like, it's fine, or don't worry about it. But you can tell something's different. Something's being kept behind closed doors. And the most unsettling part? You no longer feel like they're a safe place. Let's talk about someone like Gloria, 71. Her partner Samuel had always been open with her. He'd vent after a long phone call with his brother. He'd talk about his fears when his knee's surgery was coming up. He even used to call her his best friend. But over the past year, that changed. When his cousin passed away, Gloria didn't find out until a week later. When she asked why he hadn't told her, he just said, I didn't want to burden you. But she knew that wasn't the reason. It was easier for him to carry it alone than to invite her in. That shift doesn't happen overnight. But when someone no longer loves you, they start to close emotional doors. They still talk, yes, but not about what matters, not about what's real. You begin to feel like a roommate instead of a partner. The big decisions get made without you. The thoughts you used to share over dinner now sit quietly in their head, and you don't even know what's missing until you feel the distance growing. People don't just stop talking. They stop trusting you with their truth. And that hurts more than silence because it means they no longer see you as the person they turn to when life gets heavy or uncertain. They might still be kind, still do the dishes, still sit beside you in church. But the warmth is gone, the closeness is gone, and when you try to reach for it, when you ask what's wrong or try to connect, they pull back, not always with anger, but with avoidance. They say, "I'm just tired," or "you wouldn't understand," but what they're really saying is, "I've already turned inward. I've already begun to disconnect." If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment for below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Now let's move forward. Sign 5, physical withdrawal. When emotional closeness begins to fade, the body often follows. You'll notice fewer hugs, less eye contact, no more lingering touches on the arm or a kiss on the forehead for no reason. Even sitting together on the couch starts to feel like two people sharing space, not connection. Physical closeness, for many couples, is where unspoken love is kept alive. So when that disappears, it doesn't just feel lonely. It feels like the love has physically stepped back. Think about Martin and Alice, married for 45 years. For most of their lives, they were naturally affectionate, holding hands during walks, rubbing each other's shoulders after a long day. Martin always used to pull Alice in for a quick kiss before bed. But after his retirement, something changed. He became quieter, more distant. He'd turn his back in bed. He'd shrug off her hand when she tried to rest it on his knee while watching television. He stopped initiating any kind of touch. And slowly, Alice stopped reaching too. Not because she didn't love him, but because she didn't know where she stood anymore. Physical touch is a kind of language. It says, "I'm here, I care, I still choose you." And when someone no longer loves you, they stop speaking that language. They avoid it. They pull away. They stop reaching for your hand in public. They flinch slightly when you lean in for a kiss. It's subtle, but it cuts deep. And the longer it goes on, the harder it is to bridge that gap. It's not about passion or romance. Not always. It's about presence, reassurance, the feeling that even in silence, you're still wanted. When that's gone, it's easy to question everything, to wonder if you've done something wrong. But often, it isn't about what you did. It's about how they feel and how they no longer feel drawn to you emotionally or physically. If you've noticed a warmth leaving the room when they walk in, or if your hugs feel more like polite gestures than genuine connection, it might be time to face what's no longer being said. Because when someone stops loving you, the body knows, and it starts showing you one distance at a time. Now that you've heard these 5 signs, take a quiet moment to reflect. Maybe one of them stood out, maybe all of them did. The important thing isn't just recognizing the signs, but recognizing what they mean for you. Because when love begins to fade, we often feel in our gut before we see it in words or actions. And yet, we second guess ourselves, we minimize, we tell ourselves not to overreact. But the truth is, emotional distance always leaves clues through silence, avoidance, and a shrinking sense of being known. If you felt that shift, if you've been wondering whether what you're experiencing is real, it likely is. And you're not imagining things. You're feeling the difference between being chosen and being tolerated. That's not something to ignore. That's something to explore with honesty, courage, and compassion for yourself and for the relationship. None of this means all love is gone or that things can't be repaired. But the first step is always seeing clearly. Because once you recognize the patterns, you can stop blaming yourself. You can stop carrying the weight of one-sided connection, and you can start asking the right questions. Do I feel emotionally safe here? Am I being treated with care? Do I still feel like I matter? Remember, your peace is just as important as anyone else's comfort. And while it may hurt to admit when someone's love is fading, it's far more painful to keep pretending it isn't. You deserve real love, the kind that shows up, leans in, stays curious, and keeps choosing you day after day. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please subscribe, and share. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Thanks for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.